Forging Blade, Part 5. Testament recovered numerous members of the White Whale's crew, as was their duty. They became new residents of NLA, and the city grew as their home base. A fourth and fifth group were created during this time. Avalanche, a group dedicated to exterminating the incredibly powerful native creatures known as tyrants. And Arms, a group that developed weaponry for both dolls and infantry. Doug's numerous encounters with other tyrants while working with Nagi had earned him a place in Avalanche. Life was improving for the Earthlings trying to survive on the planet, but there was an ever-growing concern, the energy shortage. As the city's population grew, so did the strain on their energy reserves. It's becoming increasingly clear that they would not be able to ignore the problem. It's only a matter of time. You need to do something, Captain. I understand. You don't have to leg me about it, Mr. Aide. Maurice Cholson and Nagi Kentaru have repeated the same conversation numerous times. A captain without a ship and an aide without a president. A strange conversation between the two who address each other using such titles. However, even deciding on a new public statement was proving troublesome, and they continued conversing in that manner. Maurice and Nagi did not dislike each other, but they did feel they saw eye to eye, so we started. Nevertheless, there were no other individuals available who were suited to leading the government or military. They met often and unwillingly, with no choice but to cooperate. Vandam showed a man is to weasel his way out of this one. Nagi had intended for Vandam to replace him as head of the military, but he had insisted taking up work with Arms after its establishment. It didn't come as a huge surprise. Vandam had been the chief engineer aboard the White Whale, after all, but Nagi, who had been left to do all the desk work, was not amused. This wasn't the way he would have wanted things, but it was out of his hands. Nagi continued his meeting with Maurice, and they finally confronted the unavoidable matter. Give it to me straight. How much time do we have left? About 1 week. After that, the civilian facilities will shut down. Naturally, they were imposing limitations on energy use to combat the shortage. However, both men wished to avoid that. It had only been 2 years since they lost Earth. The crew of the White Whale already had to deal with establishing a base on a strange new planet under such conditions. At the very least, they wanted to provide everyone the same basic amenities as they had on Earth. Strict living conditions wear morale down very quickly, and that was their greatest fear. I understand. I will carry out the affirmation plan in 5 days. Yes, that was I wanted to hear. It's in your hands, Captain. The aforementioned plan, the recovery of the White Whale's engine. They had investigated the report from the girl called Lin Liku and confirmed that the engine sector had crashed on the same continent as NLA. The main engine had been seriously damaged by the alien pursuit. The main engine had been seriously damaged by the alien pursuit forces, but the auxiliary engine would be enough to solve the current crisis in NLA. The DM engine made up of the auxiliary and main engines. If they could obtain that high output, high efficiency power reactor, they would solve all the energy problems in NLA at once. But their current recovery plan faced two difficulties. The first was transportation. The DM engine was incredibly compact and lightweight compared to things like nuclear fusion reactors, but it was still an engine from a massive immigrant ship. There were mainly logistical issues involved in its recovery and relocation in conditions near 1G gravity. The second issue was creatures who might get in their way. The auxiliary engine had landed on the coastline, so but to be miraculously no damage to it. It was right in the middle of the habitat of sweet-dwelling creatures. In order to recover it safely, they would have to eliminate any threats. For that reason, Nagi formed the Arms Group to hasten the maintenance of machinery and dolls for the recovery operation. Would their preparations finish on schedule, or would they hit the limit of their energy reserves first? It was a race against time. 5 days after making his decision, Nagi personally led Testament from NLA. His squad was comprised of an elite selection of doll pilots: Arena, Doug, Lau, and Gwyn. Of course, Nagi was piloting a doll as well, the highest performing light frame they had available, the Formula 0. But he still wasn't satisfied. In order to survive on this planet, we'll need a considerable number of more powerful dolls. If we could just find the R&D sector and all of its high-performance prototype frames. However, they couldn't delay the operation any longer. They had no choice but to use what they had. Fortunately, the pilots accompanying him were the best of the best.
This is T-001. We'll be arriving at the target zone shortly.
The dolls had very nearly reached their destination after 3 days on foot. They stopped by the cliff-like terrain and launched a hopper camera. The video relay displayed inside their cockpits. Good, it's still intact. As they found from their previous reconnaissance, the White Whale's auxiliary engine had fallen over the shore below the cliff. From a vantage point, the data readout on the engine did not indicate any damage, and that was functioning normally.
The operation starts at 0300. Synchronize your clocks. We begin at 0.
Nagi issued one last order, and the squad gave a simultaneous Roger. They weren't facing any sophisticated races or other humans, so they wouldn't have to worry about any native creatures intercepting their communications. It's far less tense when we communicate freely. The other members of the group felt the same. Although there was little time remaining before the operation, they began chatting amongst themselves. If we get this done right, we won't have to cut back anymore. What do you know about cutting back, Gwyn? I bet you go and stuff your face every day. That's not nice. How would I maintain a slim physique if I ate that much? Slim physique, Gwyn? You might want to pack some muscles on. Those stick figure arms aren't going to help you protect Arena. Gwyn coughed loudly at Doug's comment. Lau kept to himself while they conversed. I get the feeling he was a bit more cheerful before this happened, thought Nagi, while he stared at his monitor. The counter finally dropped into the single digits. He shouted as it reached 0.
Everyone, move out.
The 5 dolls left on the top of the cliff. The native sea creatures turned towards them all, once upon sensing their presence. It was theorized that these Lumidel were swarming around the engine due to the heat it was giving off. If that was the case, they would surely meet with resistance should they try to recover it. Within the cockpit of the dolls was a database called the Collectopedia. It contained valuable information on the creatures and resources on the planet, put together from previous investigations. The information on Lumidel was currently overlaid on their monitors. They would need to take care of those doll-sized creatures first. Nagi and Arena's frame spearheaded the assault. They slashed at the Lumidel along their path, one after another. The Lumidel recognized them as enemies and started swarming around them. That was when Doug and Lau began their long-distance bombardments. The recon teams had a tough time dealing with the creatures, but the 4 elites would have no problem taking them out. Now's my chance. What rest in words, distracting Lumidel. Gwyn's doll had circled beneath the cliff to approach the engine. He was in low-impact move mode, sneaking as quietly as he could. Pay no mind, Gwyn. Gwyn's frame was not equipped with any weapons on his back, was the gravity control unit. Although they were originally intended to provide artificial gravity aboard the White Whale, they were intended to be used as a basis for a doll flight pack. Gwyn's job was to place this device on the auxiliary engine. Doing so would offset its enormous mass, as even a doll could transport it. A doll alone wouldn't have been able to power the device, but all he had to do was connect it directly to the engine, and power wouldn't be a problem. Gwyn arrived undetected and began attaching the device.
Looks like Gwyn's got it under control.
Arena informed Nagi as she cleaved the Lumidel in two. Of course, Nagi had already been keeping tabs on the situation through his sub-monitor. Even if they succeeded in fending off the creatures, the battle would be meaningless if they didn't get the engine back safely. However, before Nagi could respond, the doll's onboard AI sounded a warning siren. What's a tyrant? The AI indicated an enormous creature was emerging from beneath the sea. It seemed Lumidel were its prey, several times longer than their dolls. It grabbed the Lumidel one by one and swallowed them whole. Arrogant Riddle? Quite appropriate would be a nickname for him. Whenever another tyrant was encountered, they were given unique names. That was precisely why the Earthlings were known as a race with a penchant for naming everything they see. I'm almost done. Just keep doing your thing. The flustered Gwyn had disembarked his doll to finish fastening the gravity control unit to the engine. He was almost finished, but the wave caused the arrogant Riddle had soaked him from head to toe. Leave the tyrant to me. Doug's frame shouted up a massive rocket launcher ready to fire. Arms had developed exclusively for Avalanche's use. It was difficult to handle, but it was designed specifically to combat the massive beast. The second Doug pulled the trigger to fire after acquiring his target, Arrogant Riddle made an unexpected move. It tossed Lumidel that had in its mouth directly towards his frame. Arrogant Riddle did not appear to have high intelligence, had simply done so on a whim, or perhaps by chance. But as a result, the 4 rockets Doug fired hit Lumidel's body, exploding on contact. The point-blank explosion sent Doug and a nearby Lao flying away.
Doug, Lao!
Everyone shouted with concern. It's no big deal. My knee joint's buckled. I can only provide long-range backup from here. It seemed both their frames to be damaged. While it was fortunate that neither pilot was injured, the battle efficiency had dropped considerably.
Gwyn, we'll be right there. Just hold out until then.
I've got this under control. First Lieutenant, don't worry about me. His words were confident, but his voice wasn't. He was dripping with fear, which wasn't surprising considering he had to work right next to the massive tyrant that was devouring the Lumidel. But Nagi and Arena's frames were tuned for close quarters combat. If they didn't take out the Lumidel blocking their path, they wouldn't be able to back Gwyn up. Countless Lumidel fled towards Nagi's frame, knocking it down onto the sand. They seemed to be panicking at the presence of Arrogant Riddle. If this keeps up, you could see Gwyn frantically working through his sub-monitor. He couldn't order him to retreat no matter how dangerous the situation. The future of NLA depended on him. Alright, it's done. Gwyn finally finished testing everything and activated the gravity control device to make sure it was working perfectly. To put it simply, it was as if he attached a giant balloon to the engine to carry it away. They won't have any problems relocating it now. Although his job was complete, he was a bit behind schedule for staying alive. The instant he raised his head, ready to return to his doll, Arrogant Riddle set his sights on him. Gwyn's instinct told him all he needed to know. This thing wants to eat me! He cowered in fear. Arrogant Riddle's arm extended, and Gwyn was convinced his life was about to end. But something shattered his immobilizing fear just then. A familiar voice echoing through his headset.
Gwyn, get down. I'll take care of this.
That was not the voice of anyone from their squad. The transmission came from a 6th doll, standing on top of the cliff. A deep crimson frame leapt down from above. Nagi recognized that frame. That's a newly finished frame from the R&D sector. Wells Kane! The others understood what he meant. Everybody shouted through teary eyes.
Colonel Alma, you're alive.
The crimson wells danced through the air gracefully, unsheathing shoulder mounted J-Buster.
It's nothing personal, but we have to live on this planet too.
The creature's skull was pulverized by the point-blank strike from the G-Buster. It's good to see you, Elma.
Sorry I'm late. This frame needed a bit of maintenance first.
Elma squeezed Nagi's outstretched hand. The other members of the group smiled, and Elma explained the situation while Arena clung to her. As she had repelled the alien bioweapons together with a young man before crashing on the planet. The doll, the two of them had been blown outside the ship at that time. However, the young man opened the hatch just before and threw Elma back towards the white whale.
If he hadn't done that, I don't think I would have been able to return to the ship either.
So, he... Velma lowered her gaze at Nagi's words and shook her head. I see. But we all owe him our lives. He was a true hero. By the time Helma made it back to the White Whale, the hull had already begun breaking apart as it entered the atmosphere. She made her way to a nearby sector and set its gravity control unit to max power to withstand the crash.
It was quite difficult after that. The area was teeming with vicious beasts.
Fortunately for Elma, the sector she had taken refuge in was a sector where they researched and developed prototype dolls and other weaponry. After repairing one of the dolls, she set out to find the rest of the crew.
To think that when I finally found you, you would be in the middle of a heated battle.
That shouldn't come as any surprise. We're not welcome here. Seems like we're always having to fight these natives to the death. Lau scoffed at the situation. He seemed to have his own thoughts on the way they exterminate the native inhabitants of the planet.
I see. I hope at some point we won't have to kill each other anymore and can coexist peacefully.
Everyone nodded at Elma's words. However, they didn't have all day to chat. They still had to recover the DM engine and find the sector Elma had crashed in, along with numerous other tasks. Dissolve the United Forces? Maurice was shocked. He didn't think Nagi's suggestion was sane, and neither did the rest of them sitting there. Elma, Vandam, Harina, Gwyn, Lau, Doug. None of them hid their surprise. A day had passed since they recovered the auxiliary engine and RD sector and successfully returned them to NLA. Nagi's words were like a splash of cold water now Frank got things in order. Starting today, I am no longer Brigadier General Nagi. I will be Mr. Nagi, no higher rank than any of the rest of you. Mr. More like Sister Nagi. Vandam was so surprised he couldn't come out with a proper comeback. What's wrong? Are you surprised?
Surprised is, why are you doing this?
Nagi explained his plan in response to Elma's question. We can no longer return to Earth, or search for a new home. We have no choice but to live on this planet now. Did Robinson Crusoe have a military rank? Did the pioneers on a new continent have a military force? Vandam mumbled distrustfully. Are you trying to run away? You don't want to be commander anymore, so you break up the military? Rest assured, NLA should still create its own autonomous government. Not be its chief of military. I'm not running away from my duties. Autonomous government. Yes, perhaps that is necessary. Government officials are elected into office. But who would be willing to do that? The rest of them ignored Maurice as he mumbled to himself that there were no political beneficiaries on this new planet. If he wanted to do something boring like lead the government, that was his prerogative. However, in order to live on this planet, we will need a replacement military. I would like to call it Blade. Blade? You mean that? Correct. Beyond the Logos, artificial destiny emancipators. Blade. The Blade comes from the first letter of each of those words. Those words were once spoken by someone who had developed a certain technology necessary on Earth's wide colonization project, a friend of Nagi's, and a mutual acquaintance of Van Damme's. That's certainly an appropriate name for those living on this planet. Precisely. And you would be their commander, Vandam. Me? Nagi smiled smugly at Vandam's surprise. What's wrong? Is the man who just accused me of running away trying to run away himself? No, but Elma's higher ranked than I am. Military ranks have no meaning anymore. Velma was on her feet, already having cast a military signet onto the floor.
As a human being living on this planet, I will join Blade under Commander Vandam. I'll join too.
Me too. Everyone agreed with Velma. Doug and Arena, Gwyn and Lau, each of them cast off their military insignias. They all looked exponentially at Vandam. What's wrong, Vandam? They're waiting to hear your decision. Fine. I'll be your commander or whatever. But if any of you disobey my orders, it'll be 100 million push-ups. You'll push until your biceps explode. enter Vanguard picture here. Everyone cheered from within, all full of excitement. Came Maurice's timid voice. Captain Nagi. No, Chief of Military, actually. I have a proposal I'd like to make as well. Oh, please tell us. The man who always spoke so confidently proposed the following in an uneasy voice. I've been thinking. What if we name this planet Mira? Mira? After Mira Torres? Maurice nodded. Mira Torres. Nagi remembered that name. She had contributed to the ECP just like the person who'd spoken the words that formed Blade. Yet, she did not board the White Whale. He too held great respect for that woman who had bridged the gap between the military and civilians. That's fine. I want her ideals to take root here, on planet Mira. And that is how the huge land that goes on and on and on came to be known as planet Mira. However, it would be some time before they would share that name with other inhabitants of the planet. At that moment, in a prone settlement far from NLA, came a mutter from some preserved food in a crate. Tatsu hopes someone comes save him soon. And that is how Blade was formed. How humanity's last couple of ships found themselves on Mira. How Blade and everything got put together. And how Mira got its name. This one of the reasons why that I wish X got a bit more love regarding story. But it's so fantastic, and honestly, I feel like if anything, this game deserves its own anime.
Yeah.
It really does, because I'd love to see these backstories. And you know what? Personal thoughts here. It creates more context for Maurice, I feel.
Yeah.
Because yeah, sure, I do like the notion of like him having personal reasons to name it Mira, but also kind of like how he was like an advisor to the president and he kind of looked out into this situation. I don't know, create a nice dynamic.
And it also builds upon Nagi's character as well. He's not just some political leader. He's got a lot he wants to fight for as well.
Yeah. And this, I feel like, creates a bit more context to like the person fighting alongside Elmer at the beginning of the game. It's not stated outright in the game. It's kept vague and ambiguous. But here, though, this short story, it says no. Maybe whoever was fighting beside Elmer's dead. You never know. I mean, because there's always a chance that it's be retrofitted. I'm prepared for that. But dude, I'd love this.
Yeah.
And I hope that X gets more love. And if we time it right and all of the stars align, maybe we'll get an announcement soon. But anyway, guys, that is going to be the end of the first story in X's let's call it expanded lore, shall we?
Yeah.
Yes, guys. I've had one focusing on Elmer, NLA, and Mira itself. Now, let's go on to another main character. So much so that she is actually the narrator for the entire game for the most part. Yep, we are going to be covering a story all about Lin Liku. So, that's it, guys. If you like this video, be sure to like it, and by all means, tell us your thoughts. Did you like this? Or would you like to see more of X or more reads like this? I'm always curious to hear your thoughts. And if you like more of this video and you want to see more stuff in which we want to read or cover, by all means, again, let us know. But if you want to subscribe for more Xenoblade content, whether it's Let's Plays, reads, or trivia videos, then be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. As always, I've been Lightning.
I'm Alice.
And this has been another ASMR of Lightless Reads. We'll see you next time.